Hello, my name is Lotte Asveld. I'm associate professor at Delft University of Technology. Let me get my clicker. And I'm in the fields of ethics, actually. And I want to tell you a bit about two projects I'm involved in. So one is this, it's about clean shipping, and these are our partners. And it's focused on this question. So how to build inclusive and sustainable, put it twice. How to build inclusive and sustainable value chains for marine biofuels. And we believe that the issue of inclusion is very important because what we've seen and what our partners tell us is that it can be difficult to find reliable supply of feedstocks of biomass, especially if you go to outside of Europe. And we believe that involving the local producers of biomass is key to developing reliable value chains. So we are now looking at such change for marine biofuels, but we've learned some lessons from a previous project, which is this, Inclusive Bio-Based Innovations, where we worked with these partners, slightly different. And some of our partners were in the process of developing new bio-based value chains. And we sort of looked over their shoulders and looked at what went well, what didn't go well. Well, actually, none of those value chains are still operational. So, well, that's interesting because we need to learn from things that didn't go well. Well, so I will share some of those lessons with you. So what we did to understand value chains is we looked at building agricultural value chains. There's already a lot of experience there with including producers, small-scale producers, any kind of producers, and we use this methodology to analyze the value chains. Well, this is sort of an overall graph that says, well, how should you do inclusion? Well, you should take a very broad perspective, looking at all kinds of different factors. You're probably aware of this, just want to show this. I think this is important. What we got from this methodology is that if you look at a value chain, it's always very important to see that as overlapping business models, which means that one person's key customer is the other person's key partner. So you have to think of both the customers and the partners and develop a value proposition for both of them. So not just for your customers, but also for the producers. And this is what we saw in the value chains as really being a key aspect. So I'm going to briefly share two results from two of those case studies we did. So one of them is the Rea Fofa case in South Africa. This was by the company Sungem. Maybe you know of them. And they developed this very nice plant. It's a tobacco plant, but modified to really suit bio-based productions. So you can't smoke it anymore. It's nicotine-free, but also no GMOs. And the idea behind it was basically that consumption of tobacco would go down, but you would still have tobacco farmers that were looking for new markets. Well, as it turned out, the consumption of tobacco wasn't going down that much, so they had to find somebody else to grow these plants, and they did. They found this community in South Africa, the Biohub Nation, and they were looking to a way to diversify their income. They were very reliant on mining, platinum mining, and they were foreseeing that that wouldn't go on forever, so they were interested in starting growing these plants. But what was a really complication for Sungem is that there wasn't really any value chain there to which this community could sell their plants. So our partner was running around trying to get other partners interested. So he was working with South African Airlines, talking to the people moving around luggage at the airport, and he did get some interesting collaborations there. So it was starting to look very promising. Then Corona happened, and yeah, he couldn't travel anymore. Sungem couldn't go there anymore, and it all basically fell down, unfortunately. And so if you look at this from a value proposition, what Sungem was doing was trying to sell their plants. That was what they're doing. but along with that, they had to offer a lot of other things. A startup package, training and technologies, building up the values chains. But they had to provide that value to their producers, but also think of the possible customers and provide them with something. Yeah, this is, we can skip that. So the other case that we thought was very interesting was the POA TSM Liberty plant. Probably you're also aware of that one, where they, from the starting up this plant, it took them about 9 years to become fully operational. And one of the main problems there was trying to get the local farmers to sell their waste products to them. Because I've heard waste from agriculture a lot here, but often farmers are using their agricultural residues for many things, and you need to convince them to use that otherwise. So this was one of the reasons that it took DSM very long to start this up, because they had also to negotiate about, okay, who's cleaning the residues? What standards do we need? Who's owning the equipment? So these were all very intricate, difficult questions to solve, and they did in the end. But I think one of the challenges here is also that DSM was really, what their key proposition was their technology to build second generation ethanol, much more than there was actually also a viable value chain in which these farmers could participate, and the farmers were very much aware of that. So they were also a bit reluctant to get into something that there wasn't a guarantee that they could really sell their product. So, and they were right, because now it's not working anymore, although DSM has their proof of principle. So yeah, also here you can really ask yourself, so who is the key partner? Who is the customer segments, and is there really one, and how can you provide something that's valuable to them? So some of the, wanted to skip this. So some of the lessons we learned is that this double value proposition is crucial, and it will vary per context, so which makes it very difficult, but in each context you really need to think of who is in need of what, and how can I convince both the customer and the producer. Technologies are still evolving, and that makes it difficult and complex, but can also provide opportunities so that you can adapt technologies sometimes to a local context. This is what we saw with the Rea Fova case, where a different kind of processing technologies were explored so that local people could actually operate them. Well, in the end, it didn't work out, but this was one of the issues there for building a valuable value chain. Yeah, and then there's the need for awareness of overlapping roles of customer key and of customers and the key partners. So what we're doing now in the clean shipping case is we try to combine all these lessons learned into a concept that we call the Biohub. This is still under development, but here we try to see, okay, can we include all the customer segments needs and the partner needs into an overarching concept of a value chain that suits the needs of everybody that's relevant here. So this is still under development, and we're now trying to explore this in a case study in south of Spain with local olive producers. But some questions that we really think are prominent here is, okay, who is the customer? Is it, if you develop a technology, is it the producers of biofuels? Is it the shipping industry? Are it governments? Because governments have a huge role to play, as I already hear. So it's not always clear who that customer is. And who is responsible for building or adapting a value chain? Because that's also a big issue that we see. DSM was taking some responsibilities, Sungem was taking responsibilities, but how far does it go? And if it's not working out, yeah, who is responsible if it collapses? And also, sometimes if you look at specific context, the most sustainable solution might not be the most efficient solution if you think of terms of inclusion, because you also need to think of who is operating this technology. Will it survive without the company providing the technologies. So yeah, I think that's also an issue that we need to think about if we want to build sustainable and inclusive value chains. Thank you.